Hi there, welcome back to the Ginescast. I'm your host, Gina.annunziato. Thank you so much for joining me. Full disclosure, it is currently raining as I'm recording this, and I'm trying something new so it won't be as bad, but if you hear any little tippy-tappies, that is just rain falling on my air conditioning unit, and I have no control over it. So I'm sorry that the most fiery Ginescast that has come out so far is going to be kind of annoying in the background, and I apologize. But the message remains the same. So with that, let's get started with the Ginescast number 14. There is no defending Antifa. This is a really stupid timeline we are living in. And it doesn't necessarily mean all of 2018, but I'm thinking back on it, and there really have been some good things that have happened this year. I can't really think of them right now. Lately, I've been living in a kind of day-to-day mindset in regards to my work life, but on the whole, there's sort of a week-to-week mentality that I've been working with. Weeks go by very fast, and I don't work on weekends anymore. I'm kind of what Loverboy refers to as working for the weekend. But sometimes, when weeks start stupidly, it tends to carry on throughout. And this week, Unite the Right 2 happened. It is a white nationalist rally that takes place apparently every year, or at least every year going forward, in Charlottesville, Virginia. This is a very important rally for white nationalists I don't know, to show that they exist or something? I'm not even sure. The fact that they're even holding a rally on the anniversary of someone being killed at the rally last year, I don't know. That makes me kind of pretty uneasy, I would say. It's stupid is what it is. It's a stupid thing to do, and it's a really bad PR stunt if you ever wanted to get someone on your side with this nonsense. Thinking that you're so much better because skin color featuring political affiliation is not something that I think I would ever be on board with. I will defend your right to exist and your right to have your own thoughts. But why even at this point? Like, why even? How are people this disgusting still walking among us? I don't know. I like to cite Charlottesville 2017 as one of the flashpoints of why I call it the year of honesty. We had literal Nazis parading around in the streets, saying things about the Jews, saying things about the gays, saying things about the black people, wearing stupid fucking cotton dockers and walking around with tiki torches they more than likely got as a 12-pack for $30 at Walmart. This was just a very scary event. The fact that these people had enough balls to get out in public and preach their hate. It's scary in the fact that these people exist. And I'm glad that I know they exist because it just gives me a whole new faction of people not to associate myself with. But as we saw from this weekend's rally, their numbers are small. The counter-protest crowd completely dwarfed the right extremist side in these particular areas. And who's actually shocked by that anymore? You're going to realize that this Nazi crowd, quote-unquote, is not as big as you think it is on Twitter. You know, in fact, when you're the sort of person who calls literally anyone who is slightly right of center a Nazi, you may be shocked to find out that they're not as prevalent as you think once you close your laptops. What we saw this weekend, however, was just two sides of two different extremes. And in this country, people have the right to express their extremist viewpoints, which, sad to say, includes downright hate. As long as you're not directly threatening someone, people are allowed to spew their disgusting, hateful viewpoints. They don't have the threat of government telling them they can't. But it doesn't mean they don't have to deal with the consequences of their speech. And naturally, after this election, because for some reason President Trump is the lightning rod of the world's bullshit, people feel the need to fight back against this hateful speech and this hateful rhetoric. And why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't you want to crush this sort of mindset that is counterproductive and angry and vile and vicious? Why would you want that kind of person around you? But who are these people who have decided to fight back against the hate? Are they just your random Democrat who likes to go to rallies and maybe say some things in the street? No, this other extreme popped up. And this is a scary extreme, even scarier than literal Nazis, in my opinion, because these Nazi folks, they're few and far between at this point, and they're not as tough as they think they are. Just like these guys, these horseshoe theory homeboys kind of thing. There's this new breed of asshole who's kind of a purge LARPer, if you will. Antifa. I don't even know what they pronounce themselves as, but the anti-fascist movement, who literally has become as fascist as they accuse everyone else of being. These bunch of virtuous, overprivileged douche knuckles who cohabitate in the rainy and liberal Pacific Northwest, they're so far up their own asses with this shit, they don't even realize they've become the thing they hate. For those watching this in video format, take a look at your screen. These are examples of what we saw this weekend. People hiding their faces, cosplaying as ISIS, if you will, being violent, angry, spiteful, hateful, all because of a perception they have of people they haven't even spoken to for more than a few minutes. I will always be here for you to exercise your freedom of speech if you feel like you are fighting back against injustice. But what happens, Antifa, when you start fighting against the police who are there to protect you? What happens when you start fighting against the press who is there to cover an event? Sorry, Antifa, but there really is no defending of your recent actions. Not at the Unite the Right rally, not in Portland every week, none of it. Hand in your terrorism cards because you all suck at this. Why? Because you push people out who don't adhere, and you yell, and you scream, and you fight with bike locks, and you're more violent than you're not. If someone in your faction is being violent, then you're all in a sense complicit, unfortunately, especially when you identify under the same umbrella. You're no longer individualistic, Antifa, when you're all wearing and saying the same exact thing. And if you have nothing to hide, you will let the press do their jobs. Unfortunately, Antifa sees the press as the enemy of the people, do they not? Because they're covering the people's cameras. A local Raleigh station's audio cable was clipped as they were just trying to view the event. And I'm sorry, but once you are in public at a public event, you have lost all the right to privacy. You don't have to be videotaped, but try your damnedest to avoid that goddamn camera. And I saw shit like this occur as far back as the Occupy movement back in 2011. You think you're doing something virtuous by being part of Antifa anyway, but you think you're protecting people by requesting that they are not filmed. But all you're doing is making it look like you have something to hide, or you don't want your face associated with something you willingly showed up to. Maybe all the violence that's exploding behind you, maybe you don't want to be complicit in it. These fascist follies are reaching unparalleled levels of ridiculousness at this point. It's to the point where I cannot believe these people have any form of support behind them whatsoever. It makes me really feel like a lunatic, but kind of buy into the theory that they're somehow paid protesters to do this. I have no proof of that, but it's starting to make a bit of sense to me because I don't know how you could do this nonsense without getting a nice fat check. And unfortunately, whoever is quote unquote paying them, they are finding some of the most angry and hate-filled among us to prove some sort of point that a bunch of hooded terrorist thugs are on the right side of history. How? They are using violence to silence their critics, something that they accuse the police of doing, which I just find delicious irony. They are disallowing freedom of the press. They are using fear and intimidation tactics in order to get their way. And this is what I don't understand, because honestly, it feels like everyone can see it happening right in front of their faces. So why the hell isn't anything being done about it? What can be done? At this point, what can we even do? Have a nice sit-down chat with these people and hash out our little differences? I mean, half the time, people don't even know what they're angry about. That's not even an Antifa-specific criticism. Apparently, we are living in some sort of fascist, totalitarian Trump-Pence regime. Even though people don't seem to realize that if we were legitimately under a fascist dictatorship, the quote-unquote other side wouldn't even have a visible voice. The police wouldn't willingly protect their protest. They wouldn't get airtime. They would be shut down so unbelievably fast, and I'm sorry, but I'm not seeing that happen. If you can point me directions on when Antifa was shut down, I'm all ears. I've seen arrests, but that's about it. And then just so we're clear here, don't think I don't have words for all these literal Nazi pukes out there that Antifa's fighting back against. But what the fuck else can I say other than I condemn all forms of racism and bigotry? It's kind of, at this point, I don't know, common sense to me not to judge someone based on their skin color, their orientation, their gender, their political beliefs, their religion. I'm sorry, I want to die inside every time I see one of these chucklefuck Nazi sympathizer people from the alt-right talking about their pure white skin, or how they just want to knock up a white woman to have their white babies because white genocide. I condemn racism in all forms. Have I made that clear yet? You know what else I condemn, though? Violence. The use of force to maximize social justice or somehow benefit the quote-unquote greater good, whatever the fuck that is. So why I'm dedicating this entire podcast to Antifa and not hashtag literal Nazis, because for some reason I'm supposed to take these Antifa morons seriously. I'm supposed to care because they're fighting against quote-unquote fascists. Well, obviously, mainstream media, Nazis are bad people. No shit, Unite the Right protests are a showcase of the crazies of the crazy world that we live in. So, but I just don't understand why there isn't more condemnation of Nazi 2.0. It makes absolutely no sense to me. And here is just an example. Listen to Chris Cuomo on CNN taking the most fence-sitting Antifa apologist bullshit from his primetime show. Listen.
But peppered in the crowd were members of Antifa, or anti-fascists. They covered their faces, confronted police, and berated journalists. And that was wrong. When you use your hands in a violent way, you are a rioter. And unless you're justified in defending yourself and you hit someone, you're a thug, you're a criminal. You attack cops, you slap the media, you're in the wrong, period. But I argue to you tonight, all punches are not equal morally. When someone comes to call out bigots and it gets hot, even physical, are they equally wrong as the bigot they are fighting? I argue no. Fighting against hate matters. Now, how you fight matters too. There's no question about that. But drawing a moral equivalency between those espousing hate and those fighting it because they both resort to violence emboldens hate, legitimizes hateful belief, and elevates what should be stamped out.
Oh, okay, Chris, let me just make this extra crystal clear for you. Violence solves nothing. There is no justification for senselessly beating the shit out of someone because you think you're in the right. Arguments are for words, not fists. You keep your hands to yourself. This is something we learned in fucking kindergarten. The only way I can see needing to resort to violence is if someone attacks you first, places their hands on you in anger, and decides to take it to that level before you do. Otherwise, don't punch people who are just standing there. I can't even believe that that was a debate. Antifa people were actually proud of the fact that there were, like, I would say 20, 30 literal Nazis in Charlottesville, because their tactics of being violent and angry, ooh, they worked. How can you say that that kind of tactic works? All you did is pound someone into submission. And if you don't think that they're going to find a way to fight back, then you're just straight up ignorant. Do I want them to fight back? No, I want them to crush themselves, truthfully. But with all of this nonsense that's going on, if you got more Chris Cuomos out there who are saying this kind of nonsense, it's just gonna light a fire in their bellies even further. You know who actually covered Antifa accurately? Vox. Here's a quote from an August 12th article from Jennifer Williams. Quote, "This is not the first time Antifa protesters have been violent. In August 2017, about 100 anarchists and Antifa members assaulted far-right demonstrators who were marching peacefully in Berkeley, California, with pepper spray, water bottles, and direct physical assault. It wasn't neo-Nazis and white supremacists the Antifa attacked. It was the police who were there to help keep the peace among all the demonstrators and journalists who were there to cover the events. How that factors into Antifa's ideology is anyone's guess." That was from Vox. Let that sink in for a second. Even the Washington Post wrote an article about how these yahoos are hurting their cause more than they're helping it. I feel like people are kind of 56% of the way there. These left-wing outlets, they're getting there. They're beginning to wake up to how crooked and flipped everything on its ass is. But they couldn't help but take a few pot shots at, the right people, the Republicans, the Nazis, conservative. I don't even know. What do people even call themselves anymore? I don't know. Because you know what? At this point, you can't even decide. You can't even delineate what anybody is. Anybody who's on the right is a Nazi, and anybody who's on the left is a libtard. I'm kind of sort of starting to understand why the left side of things seems to be the ones who will first raise a stink en masse in the face of injustice. It's as if they kind of collectively see something going on, and they need this huge collection of people in order to back up why they feel the way they do. And hopefully someone else, someone greater, someone who has the power they can wield can help correct it. And unfortunately, I'm just one person. What can I do? Well, I don't know. Maybe I submit that maybe not all of these Antifa dipshits are like the guy who said that people should just kill President Trump in the same manner as Gaddafi was killed. AKA beating him savagely and shoving a bayonet up his ass. Yeah, that's not a violent threat against a sitting president or anything, but we'll just skip that for now. No, I'll concede that maybe someone from the anti-fascist movement wants to talk to me. Maybe. The closest I got to speaking with someone was Mike Isaacson, a professor who said he was teaching future dead cops. I saw him at a Refuse Fascism rally in New York City last November, and he actually sat and talked to me. And, he's merely an Antifa supporter. Or is he? I don't even know, but I'll link you to that live stream if you want to see it. Strange things are happening, and I don't see that as a bad thing. We were once living in a time of we report and we decide for you too. But I feel like there's more and more pushback against that. Pushback of the likes that I've never seen before. Like I've told you, I believe in everything coming out in the wash, and I don't worry about things I have no control over. But I do comment on them. And I'm not going to let a bunch of two-bit wannabe thugs try to intimidate anyone, especially people who are out there to get the truth. And if all you have to fall back on is shouting incoherently, bike-locking bust-ups, and wishing a porn star lawyer Michael Avenatti to run for president, I've got news for you. No, I mean literally, I've got to wonder where you get your news, because I'll tell you where I do. I listen to everything. I read all sorts of sources. I get all kinds of viewpoints. I don't really care where they come from. I'll read fucking Gateway Pundit if I need to. The only way you crack open your skull and slow down, Antifa, not with a bike lock, it's for you to make the conscious effort to do so. To be brave enough to stand up against actual injustice and not what you feel is injustice. To have the courage to accept that maybe your ideas aren't all that bright and you're not as smart as you think you are. We need to stop making excuses for shitheads and stop defending what is indefensible. There's a lot of backwards thinking going on, and I know how hard it can be to decipher what exactly is going on, but we're going to get there. I have faith that we will, because people cannot get away with their nonsense forever, especially when social media almost forces transparency upon us. But step one in all of this is realizing that you're not special, you're not badass, and you're not worth anything by default. You carve your own path in life. You create your own reality. You have the final say in who you are and what you want to be. And if you want to be known as someone who has to hide their face and cowardly hit people who are different than you, then go ahead. Be my guest. I'll be over here on the more carefree side of history. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ginescast. I understand I got heated, but I just feel like there's things I need to say, and I really just don't give a shit anymore at this point. What do I give a shit about? I don't know. So the interviews that I did with the lovely folks, the LGBT folks who spoke to me, that podcast definitely is coming out August 22nd, 2018. I apologize again. It took me a lot longer than I thought, and only because I want to give the proper respect for the topic and for the people, and I just want to take the extra time, the extra step, because like I said in the video I made recently, it took a whole different turn than what I originally set out to do, and I just want to make sure that it's the best it can possibly be. The Ginescast comes out every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the Ginescast Lite comes out Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to link you my new channel in the description. I would please ask you to subscribe to that because I will be moving this Ginescast content over there shortly. If you liked this podcast, please give it a like, please give me a comment below, or share it with someone you think would like it. If you want more from me, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch at HelloGines, or shoot me an email at gina.annunziato@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ginescast. I'm your host, Gina Annunziato, and I'll see you next time. Take care.